What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Ableton Music Producer Podcast. This is Dan Giffen, as always. Today, we've got a special episode with Ned Rush. He talks a lot about his process and how he approaches music, how he produced an album called Mode 2. And if you aren't familiar with Ned Rush, whose real name is Duncan Wilson, he has been a longtime YouTuber. He has uploaded thousands of tutorials sharing little tips and tricks and hacks in Ableton Live. Definitely check out his YouTube channel if you get a chance. He also produces under the name Rude NHS. He's a visual artist. He's well known for developing a lot of Macs for live devices. He's a Macs MSP developer and has worked with Isotonic Studios, which we had Darren Cowley on the podcast, who's the founder of Isotonic, a while ago. Before we jump in, I wanted to give you a quick reminder. If you haven't subscribed to this podcast, I would really appreciate it. It'd really help me out wherever you're listening. Leave a review, and I would be super grateful. If you want to be the first to know when new episodes come out, then go to liveproducersonline.com/newsletter and join the newsletter. I'll also share new events and webinars and things that are happening, as well as the latest episodes as they are released. So join the newsletter. It's definitely worth it. Also, if you don't own Ableton Live 11 yet and you want to save some money, go to liveproducersonline.com/buyableton. Happy to hook you up with a discount. And last but not least, I want to give a huge shout out to Melodics. They have been an amazing company, very supportive of this podcast. And to be honest with you, it would be a lot harder to do this podcast without them. So if you haven't tried their free trial, go to Melodics.com. It's a desktop app. You can download to your computer. You can plug in virtually almost any MIDI controller or your electronic drum kit and just practice your skills. They've got a lot of different lessons, a huge variety of genres that they keep adding to constantly. So it's a great way to level up your practicing, have a lot of fun while doing it, and really appreciate Melodics for supporting this podcast. Give them some love. Go to Melodics.com. If you decide to join their subscription plan, you get access to a ton of more lessons and content and options to level up your skills. Highly recommend that as well. And just use the discount code if you want to save on the subscription plan. Discount code is LPO-20. That's LPO-20. Save that money. One more quick thing, if you wanted to stay connected with me, then you can either join the Facebook group, which is just Live Producers Online members. Just search that. It's a private group. You can request to join. I'll accept you. Just make sure you answer the questions. And also my Discord. I'm way more active in Discord these days. It's a great community I've been building. You can share your tracks. You can ask questions. And if you decide to join my membership, then you can get 24-hour Ableton support and hang out with me on the regular. So if you want to join Discord, go to liveproducersonline.com/discord, DISCORD. Thanks for listening, everybody, to the podcast, and hope you're all doing well out there. And now today's episode with Ned Rush. Yeah, right now, for everybody listening, we have Duncan Wilson with us, aka he goes by the name Ned Rush, if you've ever seen him on YouTube. He also produces under the name Rude NHS. And you're a composer, producer, musician, sound designer, Macs MSP developer, visual artist. You wear a lot of hats, but you've been releasing music online for a while, since early 2000s, I think. You teach a lot of your Ableton wizardry on your YouTube channel, which I've seen a lot of your videos like many years ago. I didn't even realize that was you until recently, and I was like, oh, that was Ned. But you release a lot of great Macs for Live devices I've used with Isotonic Studios, which we had, as I said, Darren Cowley on the podcast, who's the founder of Isotonic. And they release a lot of really cool devices for producers, performers. But yeah, man, thank you for hanging out on the podcast. I'm glad to have you today.
It's very nice to be here. Nice to meet you. I like your Ableton hoodie.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I got it for free. It's laundry day. I have like 4 of these. I usually wear when laundry's getting low. The black Ableton hoodie is a rare, indeed, though. Yeah. It's hard to find. That's my favorite one. Yeah. What do you have going on these days?
So, well, not a huge amount these days. I finished the album. Well, I released the album in March, just over a month ago. And with that out of the way, I've kind of just been not doing anything apart from some workshops with Music Hackspace, kind of relaxing really after quite a long period of work, or at least finishing some work, let's say.
Yeah. I listened to the making of your album on the music production podcast with Brian Funk. like I said when we first jumped on the call, I was on his podcast a while ago, and you had some really good insights to share the process behind making the album Mode 2, which came out in March, and said that you haven't played much guitar, but did a lot of hacks and chopping up and slicing the guitar, and did a lot of real instrumentation with the album. And it has like a really cool drum and bass kind of groove, which I don't hear a lot of guitar with drum and bass. So it's definitely an organic vibe. And it's a cool album. I was putting it on repeat today and listening to it.
Thank you very much. Cheers. I'm proud of it, but I'm happy it's over.
Yeah. No, I understand that feeling. You put so many hours in a dark cave into working on something that you're proud of, and then it's like, okay, well, I released that into the world. It's time to do that all over again, and hopefully people listen to it and share it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Obviously it would be very nice if people listen to it and share it and even buy it. But that's not always my expectation. I'm quite happy just to make music just for my own sort of posterity, really. And just as a kind of personal sort of discipline and, just ways to kind of tick on through life, really. I'm not signed to a label and I don't release music professionally or anything. It's still a very glorified hobby, really, for me. So I don't worry too much about how well things do in that department. I'm happy just to leave it on the internet, and people pick it up, they do, and if they don't, then it's all right,
Yeah.
I think it would be different if if the context was different, if it was like if there was a big marketing campaign behind it or some big label backing or something, and it didn't do very well. I might be a little bit like, well, this is awful. But it's all on my own terms, and therefore all on my own head. So I don't sort of worry too much about it. But it's always good when people give me feedback and stuff. So
I mean, music is therapy. I mean, that's an entire profession now. It's just music therapy. And for me personally, I agree it the same way. The less pressure I put on myself to try to make something quote unquote great, which is subjective in itself, like the happier I am creating it, and usually the better the end result is. I'm more proud of it when I'm not trying just to create it for the popularity or, feeling pressured under a label or something. Just like good therapy, you make it for yourself. And I feel like that the most authentic music comes out when you have that energy behind it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the good things about doing music completely independently is, you're obviously completely independent, and therefore you're calling all the shots all the time, and you have complete control over everything. And you can delay things a couple more months if you need to work on a mix a bit more, or you can just suddenly start the whole project again if suddenly you've decided it's awful, or you can trash it or whatever. There's no one there going, we need this done in 3 months or something,
Yeah.
And so with that, you can feel a lot better about the decisions that you make, because there's no one breathing down your neck.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can also not necessarily be quite a good thing, because it can be very easy to not get things finished, or to lack any kind of routine, or kind of determination or deadline or whatever. So sometimes you do need something there to kind of work towards, and to give you that sort of nervous energy to go like, well, I have to get this finished, otherwise I'm gonna look like a tit if I don't get this done. I've been talking about this album for 2 years and I still haven't finished it. I need to finish it.
Right.
So it's a balance.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's one thing if you're just a guitar player and you're just uploading your like guitar to SoundCloud and you're just an Americana singer songwriter, but like when you're using a black hole like Ableton Live, it's so many options where it's almost like there's so many different things to choose from. There's so many different ways to make music. It's easy to get lost in that sometimes, especially for newer producers, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always faffing about like with different ideas and workflows and techniques and stuff. And, most of that stuff kind of gets dumped onto the YouTube channel,
Yeah.
Like, I might sort of find something and I might think this is a very, very interesting idea. Maybe not for my music, but it's an interesting idea. So I'll put it on YouTube and then other people can try it. And, and they can make music with it. And sometimes they do, and people send me stuff and they go, I made this track using this thing you did. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's great. And now I don't have to do that because someone else did it. So,
yeah, no, like, exactly. That was my experience with your knobulator, which I didn't even know you created until recently. But I saw Mr. Bill created a tutorial video. He calls them mud pies, where he just tweaks a bunch of knobs, resamples audio, and gets these muddy, distorted, crazy, bassy sounds that he chops up and uses in his productions. So I've used that to make some good mud with the knobulator. Okay, Max for Live.
I'm glad to hear that the mud is being made.
It is. It's good musical mud. Yeah. Well, how did you get into Ableton Live? Like, when did that come into your life?
Well, quite a while ago. I started on version 3 with a cracked version of Live 3, but I bought Live 4 very soon afterwards.
Yeah, there's no judgment here. You're fine.
Yeah, I mean, this must have been in about 2004, I think.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I mean, yeah, so Live's versioning kind of syncs nicely with every year of the 21st century. So I think it was probably around 2003, 2004. And my flatmate at the time, who was also a producer, got it. I think he even had Live 1. So I'd heard about it before then. And I think at that point, it was kind of just kind of like a sort of DJ app, like a remixing app. And, he showed it to me and he was kind of like, this is going to change everything. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, of course it is. And it kind of has. But it was still very much in its infancy. It was kind of like, I think you could record into it. I think he was doing a lot of recording with it and he was producing tracks in it. And then he was very nicely taking those tracks that he'd produced and then very quickly taking them to the stage and remixing them like live and stuff. And I just sort of had a go on it and very quickly I just started to find things about it that I really liked that I'd struggled with in other programs. Yeah, I got bitten by it very quickly, and not soon afterwards I bought Live 4 and started using it like all the time. And I've pretty much stayed with it ever since, really. So.
Yeah, you stayed in Live 4 ever since.
In Live 4, I do have the box somewhere. If I'd have thought that we were going to talk about it, I would have got the box out. I'm sure I've still got the CD somewhere. I doubt it will run on this operating system.
The legacy Ableton Live 4. I feel like somebody would pay pretty good money to have Live 4. The legacy, old school. There
were some things in it that they took out, which I'm very, very cross about, and they've never put back. I really always liked the Midi sequencer, and in particular with the way that you could. So, like, if you the way that you could kind of automatically snap the lengths of notes to other notes according to their original length and where they were. So, if you had a note that was like 4 bars long, and then a note that was a bar long, and another note that was 3 bars long, but they were ever so slightly off, you could quantize them and grab them and shrink them down and stretch them back out, and they would quantize in relation to their original length. But now when you do that, it stretches them out and they're all the same length.
Yeah, that would be a nice additional feature outside of Legato, because Legato does that, right? It just locks all of them into each other. But if you could shorten them, specify that would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, it was just something that made certain things so fast. Because I don't think even at that point I even had a MIDI keyboard. I think I was just doing everything on the QWERTY keyboard. Because I really hated like drawing notes in and stuff. I don't mind editing stuff afterwards, but I'm not a big fan of like drawing in the notes. I like to punch them in or whatever.
Yeah.
So I remember kind of being a little bit frustrated one day when a version came along and I was using that and I was like, this is different. Well, I don't like it. And then I've kind of sort of stopped really doing stuff like that.
Well, I mean, as many as Max for Live devices you've made, I feel like you could probably make one to do that if you really wanted to.
Well, either that or someone has. I mean, I sort of then I got more into the thing where I would hold down the note on the notes on the keyboard, and then I would use the cursor to step enter the notes.
Okay.
And then you have your grid, the size that you want it. You hold down the note, and then you press right on the keyboard.
Yeah.
And it puts the notes in according to the next step. Then you take your fingers off, and then you do the other one, do the next one. That was kind of my compromise.
Yeah, I mean, if it works, it works, I guess. Yeah, interesting. I'd have to do a little research and find out. I'm sure somebody's made a Max for Live device that does that real quick.
Probably. And also, like, there's a nice thing on the push now where you can kind of press a pad and then press another pad for how long you want the note to be, and then that's how long it puts the note in and stuff. But I mean, also these days, I kind of it's been a while since I did any sort of melodic synthy stuff that I probably wouldn't even really notice it if I went back in and did some stuff like that. Yeah,
cool. Yeah, I mean, I got into Ableton Live 8, which still feels like a long time ago at the beginning, but 4, that definitely goes way back. So you're one of the OGs of the Ableton Live crew. You are not a certified trainer, are you?
I am not a certified trainer. I'm an uncertified trainer.
An uncertified trainer.
I'm a Ableton cowboy in that sense. I don't have the license to give out the knowledge that I give it. I just do that out of enthusiasm. But I am kind of like, I'm sort of the black sheep, I suppose, in the CT community, because I know quite a lot of them, and
right,
I get invited to things and stuff, and it's been fine.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I'm sure there'll be opportunities if you want to do it again, for sure. Have you gone to Loop?
I've not been to Loop, no.
Okay.
But I'm absolutely going to the next time that it happens in real life. Yeah,
it looks like 2022 is a real possibility. So hoping for that, and definitely would love to see you there. It's probably one of the best conferences, if not the best convention I've ever been to. It's just a bunch of nerds hanging out together, sharing devices and talking about oscillators and crazy shit. It's fun.
Okay, yeah, it does sound good. I've watched a lot of videos about it and met a lot of people who are involved in it and work within it and stuff. And every time I've seen it, I've always kind of thought like, oh yeah, it does look kind of good. I mean, like the setup, the venue, the choices of venue, and just the overall tone of voice of the whole thing. It's not like NAMM or something like that, where it's kind of like a very tech. Yeah, it's not like a tech thing. It's like it's very much more a sort of creative and philosophical thing, and all the conversations are all about like very interesting stuff to do with anything, and not just about Ableton, like just making music, So it's like a kind of music producer composer seminar type thing. Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you just come home feeling extremely inspired as a creator. And I'm sure you've had many moments like that in your life. I try to force myself, every few months or whatever, to, whether it's a webinar that I purchase or whether it's, going to a big event like Loop. Obviously, COVID was weird the last year, but I always try to force myself out of my element and stretch myself to learn something new or to network or go to a big thing like that, just because I know you come back feeling like hyped up and amped up and all the creative juices are flowing and just puts you back into your element. I feel like to make more music, for me anyway. But yeah,
I mean, I used to get that a lot going to festivals. I'd go to a festival and then I'd come back and I would feel very sort of inspired and rejuvenated, and I'd have all these ideas, even if some of the stuff that I'd seen wasn't in any way connected to anything I'm interested in. Just being around a busy environment of enthusiastic people can really rub off on you and kickstart things in your brain, and it's good. It's been a while since I've been to anything like that, but I would absolutely do Loop next time around for sure. Yeah, for sure, definitely. Me too. I'm going to go again. Well, like I was saying, you released this new album, Mode 2, in March. I'd love to talk a little bit about your process creating the album in the studio. Maybe you can share some hacks and different devices, workflows that you used in creating the album. Like we talked about, you upload a lot of really great content on YouTube, like little hacks and tips and tricks. And I watched one of my favorite ones not too long ago was building drums with Operator. Thought that was a really cool tip. So I'd love to pick your brain and maybe just talk about the album. And we were talking about being inspired. So like, how did you get inspired to create this Mode 2 album you recently released? Well, for starters, it's actually a sequel to an album I did in 2015.
Yeah.
And I'm planning to do mode 3 eventually.
Oh, okay.
So I've kind of got this sort of kind of pretentious prog trilogy going on in my brain that I kind of need to get out of my system, and then it'll kind of be done. I don't really know what really sort of inspired me. I think when I started doing music by myself, my plan was that I would do albums by like playing all the instruments, like doing a Prince or something like that, of just, right, I'll lay down the drums, then I'll lay down the bass, then I'll do guitar and whatever. But it didn't really happen because I ended up just getting distracted by the multiverse that is music tech and music production and stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, synthesizers, drum machines, granular synthesis, like LFOs and like aleatoric algorithms and, and all of those kind of like, late teen aspirations just kind of got discarded.
Yeah. It's a lot of toys.
I mean, I was just like, so as much as I wanted to, make an album where I play all the instruments when I was like 20 years old, I didn't really have the skills to do it in a way that I would kind of be proud of, And so when I was making music at that age, I was, cheating a little bit by using a lot of samples, and like not having to worry about how good the drums sound because I've just used someone else's drums, and I've chopped it up and all this sort of stuff. I guess I kind of like either consciously or subconsciously waited a bit until I knew what I was doing a little bit more. It was always in the back of my head that I would do like something with guitar on, something with bass, and I'm not a very good drummer, but I really like playing the drums, and I've always wanted to just record my own drums and make them sound nice and chop them up and do the stuff that I was doing with other people's drums, but with my own drums.
Yeah, your drums sounded real. Were those acoustic drums that you played and then just sampled in the album?
So I went a little bit overboard and bought a load of microphones. And bought a drum kit for £30.
Wow.
Off eBay. Yeah, I really lucked out there.
That was a great deal or a shitty drum kit, one or the other.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the snare sounds fine. The toms are a bit. I mean, I did buy it sometime afterwards. I did buy a nice ride cymbal for £40.
Okay.
But the hi-hat is awful. The toms are awful. But the snare sounds fine, and the kick is, it's a kick. So it was enough for me to sit down and just do some things and record it.
Yeah.
So I went through a very, very long process of trying to make those sound good and trying to find a way to record it where I was like happy. And so that was kind of the first stages. Because in mode 1, there's live drums on that, but they're samples. So even though I played them live, like on pads, like in a take, in using rhythms that I would if I was playing a drum kit, that's Ableton session drums. So as good as they sound, it's all samples. And so when I finished that, I was like, next time I'm going to do the drums, I'm going to do them in real life.
Yeah. Session drums is a great pack. That's a great Ableton pack for anybody listening.
Yeah. When I first heard it, I was like, oh my God. And I think I know where my favorite snares are in that library.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I made so much stuff the minute I got that first pack. I was just like, this is the best thing like I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to use them again because they're quite a drain on resources if you use some of those multi-mic'd packs.
Yeah.
It can take like a long time for them to load into RAM and stuff. And
computer might cry a little bit.
So I worked for a long time on the drums, like experimenting and trying things. Whilst some of the songs were done in that very old school way of like me laying down one instrument at a time, like 4-track fashion. A lot of them are more kind of collages and pieced together with various jams in Ableton. So as much as I went down a traditional route of multi-miking the drums and then mixing them down kind of the old-fashioned way with kick, snare top and bottom and rooms and all this sort of stuff. A lot of the other things are just recorded with a stereo microphone. And then I just played like by myself out of context, just like jamming along. And then I would go in and find like 4 bars that was like, okay, well, I was good there. And then I would just beef it up by putting some one-shot samples over the top, and then I would bounce it down. And then it was kind of like, all right, that's my drum break. Those are, or, maybe 3 or 4 of those. And I'd be like, right, those are the drum breaks I'm going to use, and I'm going to chop them up and do the stuff that I would normally do. But
yeah,
that's me, and obviously they're very heavily like processed so that they're very precise. At least the kicks and the snares are very precise,
sure. Especially for the drum and bass tracks, you kind of have to really tighten those up because there's so much rhythm happening in a short period of time. Yeah. I mean, I kind of like the idea of it being a little bit confusing in that sense of it being sort of a little balance there. I wanted to kind of play with. Yeah.
But I mean, as much as there are lots of moments on there where it's very kind of sample heavy and very sequencer heavy and lots of editing, all of the source materials all come from like things in real life played with my hands.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever use the groove pool to kind of tighten up some of the timing of the rhythms?
No, not at all. I really, I don't think I even know how it works. So I think I think it's just like, I think you can load like a drum loop in, and then it can analyze it, and then it can make a MIDI from the swing of it. Or something. I
think it lines up with the transient markers that are read out when a clip is warped. So you drop that groove into the groove pool, or you could extract your own groove from an audio clip that you recorded, which is cool too. I've done that. And then I usually mess with, in the actual groove pool itself, in the groove, I play with the velocity. If you really want to have more expression with the transients that are being locked in the clip, that you assign it to that groove. And then also there's the quantize, and I usually flip through the quantize, usually 16th or 8th notes, to have it lock into the next transient that it picks up, that it's moving the timing of, to lock into that groove.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, no, I didn't really play much with that stuff. I all I did was just kind of get the kicks and the snares on point, and then everything else in between, I just kind of left it, because I was going for very much that kind of like drum break feel, of like lots of syncopation and lots of soft ghost notes in between. So I left those bits kind of as they were. I didn't want to go too tight on those parts. But everything else is, because it's quite a driving. Some of the tracks are quite driving, and they really move, and they've got to be very on point if you're going to do that. Otherwise, it just sounds a bit.
So when you're starting a track like that, obviously this was like a non-traditional way for you to produce, recording the drums, playing them yourself, doing a lot of that stuff. From the podcast I heard with Brian Funk you were on, you talked about how you had a kind of a different approach to this album and some of the ways you worked. I guess, what other instruments did you play with, and maybe share some Ableton hacks that you used maybe from some of the projects in this album?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of, I sort of created this library ahead of time. And it's something I've been trying to do a lot in the last couple of years, is that, if those moments come about where I want to do music, but I haven't got any ideas, then I just try and make stuff. It's a little bit like Mr. Bill and his Mud Pies, It's like I just sort of like, I might just record like 127 kick drums and just stick them in a folder, and like, maybe one day I'll use them, but like, and so I kind of wanted to do something similar where I just sort of would just have these sessions where I would just record like loads of like sort of rudimentary kind of guitar stuff that didn't really mean anything. It was just like, like when you play a guitar in a guitar shop, you just sort of like riff about, and none of it means anything. But I just recorded it very nicely, and then I would forget about it. And then when I was sitting down just to maybe start jamming with ideas, I would pull these things in and chop them up and maybe make new stuff with them, and try and turn them into something that I liked. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of that, and I wanted to like really have a nice feedback guitar sound, but I couldn't get it, so I cheated and used Operator with some guitar distortion to do like a feedback guitar type sound that's like all over the whole record.
That's cool.
It was one of those moments where I was like, oh, I've found it. I found that sound now. And sometimes it's kind of one of those it's little things like that can make you just everything can firework, and then you can suddenly get everything done because there's just this one little nuance that you've nailed, and then suddenly everything writes itself, So
that's really funny that you say that. I've noticed that for myself too. It's that little aha moment that you have where you're just like being playful and just turning knobs and just making really weird shit. And then something pops out at you. And it's that one little piece of inspiration you needed that like just makes everything so much easier to just keep writing. Like a lot of times I find my favorite tracks, I usually write a lot of times in the shortest amount of time, which is weird how that works for me personally. And I think it's like that burst of inspiration. It's like, oh, this is dope. I can work with this. And then I just make it pretty quick because it's like all of the ideas just kind of flood together at that point. And then hopefully you finish it later. Yeah,
I guess those things are just little sparks, aren't they? There's just those unexpected sparks. And up until that point, I was trying all kinds of things. So I was trying to like stand in front of my monitors with my guitar and wave it around and find all these sweet spots and overtones. And, and then I was like, oh, this isn't working. And then I thought, oh, I'll have to buy an EBow. And then I kind of thought, oh, EBows are expensive. And then I sort of started sampling feedback and then trying to play it from the keyboard with sampler. And I was like, that's not working either. And then I kind of like, I just sort of thought about it. I thought like, what is it I like about that sound? It's that point where one note transitions into the other one, and then there's that breaking overtone in the middle. And I thought, well, surely I could just do that with two sine waves and just tune one sine wave differently to the other one and then crossfade from one to the other. And put some guitar distortion on it. And then I did it and I was like, oh yeah, that's it. Because that's basically what it is, like scientifically.
Yeah.
Just two sine waves, and then they're different intervals.
So interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, just wanted to give a big shout out to Melodics for sponsoring this podcast episode. It's a really cool desktop app. You can download it to your computer. Definitely check it out. They've got all kinds of lessons and genres that you can practice to. Just plug in your push or nearly any MIDI controller. There's a lot of different compatibility options. Or plug in your electric drum kit and just practice your skills. It's a great way to level up your practicing and have fun while doing it. So yeah, check that out. Go to melodics.com, and that's melodics.com, and use the discount code LPO-20. That's LPO-20. There's a free trial because free trials are great, but if you decide to join the subscription plan, use that discount code LPO-20 to save some money. And yeah, definitely worth it. Check out Melodics, great company, great software, and highly recommend it. So yeah, thanks for listening to the podcast, and back to today's episode. You did a lot of really cool chopping with a lot of the guitar that you used, some of the slicing. How did you do some of those quick slicing chops? Maybe we could talk about that for a second.
Yeah, well, that was, again, like lots of different things. One of the first things, when I started doing music by myself, that was absolutely one of the first things I knew I wanted to do, was that I wanted to, take guitar tracks and chop them up in the way that like other people were doing with drums and stuff, to make it very sort of like challenging people's listening, that's a guitar, but like, why is it doesn't sound like it's been played right, like the
Eddie Van Halen did a lot of that, right? Like, he would just lay down the guitar and slap it and play these weird drumming overtones on top of his guitar too.
Yeah, absolutely. When he would have his like more avant-garde moments when the rest of the band were off stage, he would do these things that were just not about the squealing guitar solos, and more about like, look how many sounds I can get out of this. Yeah. And I, when I was learning guitar, I really liked Eddie Van Halen, and for specifically for those things. It was like he's doing a lot of like crazy stuff that like I didn't really think a guitar could do, really,
right.
Like tapping harmonics and kind of like this sort of crazy kind of like, I guess it's almost like slap bass, but kind of muted kind of slapping of the strings or whatever.
Right.
Just very, very percussive and just
with lots of effects too, which is kind of sounded wild.
Yeah, and I think that like that probably like had an influence on that desire to kind of do it digitally, as it were.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've got like recordings from 20 years ago, which is just all of me doing that. But they were just experiments, really. There weren't any. And so, yeah, it was kind of a combination of using loads of one shots, or sometimes what I would do is that I would have like a really long kind of jam of all kinds of guitar stuff, like maybe like 2 minutes or something. And then I would just kind of jump around the start position of the sample in various ways to kind of just give you like a little snippet of this larger take.
Yeah.
And then I would just kind of keep doing that until I found things that I liked rhythmically and that worked well with the drums. Or sometimes I would take a drum loop and slice it to MIDI, and then use that MIDI, the same MIDI, to trigger like guitar samples and stuff, so that they're very nicely lined up rhythmically.
Yeah.
I kind of just, it was just sort of every trick I could think of, really.
So what were some of the other tricks? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, loads of things, really. I just had so many kind of sounds to play with. I think I had this, I think maybe for like one weekend, I was renting this studio space at the time, and I just went in for like a weekend and just recorded like every guitar riff that I know in the world. Just every, I was just like, I'm just going to put my entire vocabulary to tape right now and save it. And then sometime later, when I thought about trying to make some tracks out of it, I would just pull them in and go, oh, all right, maybe I could use this or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was just just a lot of like the same types of things I like to do with breaks, but just applying them to guitar instead, really.
Yeah.
And
so do you do a lot of that slicing as well? You said like slice to MIDI, but also like in the sampler, do you use a lot of the slice mode in the sampler as well?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, like, so it kind of really depends. Like, sometimes I'll do that to get something going, just to start playing about and come up with an idea. The kind of the transient detection on that is like really good. I think it's like one of the best that I've seen in like any. Recycle was very good back in the day, but like you've still got to export it and then load it into another sampler. But just to have something there that you can, and you can put anything in there. You can put like 3 seconds in there or 3 hours in there, and it will go through and pick out some transients, and suddenly you've got like a drum kit from whatever you put in there. So there were kind of lots of recordings I did that were just like little stabs where I would just be like, not even playing music, just like strumming with muted strings and flicking the pickup switch, and just trying to find like weird sounds that are like very electric guitar sounding, but not particularly musical.
Yeah.
And then I sometimes I would put them into simpler and just turn those transients up and then just kind of hammer out. Or sometimes use like an arpeggiator and just pull in an arpeggiator and kind of play, sort of try and find these patterns by just holding pads down and letting the arpeggiator kind of make these sequences up. And
totally. Yeah.
Often in the background, I'd have something recording like the whole thing that I could then go in and go, okay, those bits were good, I'll use that or something. So
that's very cool. Yeah, and with probability, you can really expand on that arpeggiator kind of vibe where you're just like having certain notes jump in and out with Live 11. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't tried that. I might try that later. I've done, I love the probability and the velocity ranges in the MIDI and Live 11. Like I use it all the time now, but I haven't tried it with like the arpeggiator or other MIDI effects. I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Honestly, I haven't that much either. I just gave myself a great idea. It's a good job, Dan. Yeah. I mean, you've created a lot of Max for Live devices, and we've talked a little bit about your album. Are there any go-to Max for Live devices that you're using in most of your tracks that you just couldn't live without?
Not really. No, I hate to be boring, but I don't really use a lot of I'm working on stuff at the moment that I really, really want to use a lot in the future. And as I was coming to the end of finishing the record, I was starting to prototype some new things just at home. And so one track I was working on, I just chucked on this thing I was working on the drums and just left it and just recorded it. And I was just like, whatever it does, I don't care. It can go on the record or whatever. I did have this kind of nice moment whilst doing that where I was kind of listening to recordings of me on the drums going through some software, some DSP algorithms that I'd made. I was kind of like, whoa, I didn't think I'd ever really get to this stage, but now I've just gone and done it now. So
that's very cool.
So and even though like what it did wasn't that great, I kind of thought I have to put that on anyway, because that's just a little personal moment for me. But I mean, well, there's the thing is with Max MSP and Max for Live development is that if you get into it, you're kind of nothing's ever really finished. You're kind of always sort of trying to, if you come up with a nice idea for something, there's always room to refine it and make it better and make it run more smoothly and stuff. So, you know, I have all of these things that I've done, but they all kind of like turn into something else later that just runs a little bit better and is more elegantly programmed. I've got like some video stuff that I was using at gigs for a while that I'm still trying to you know, make run just to make more slick, you know. Yeah. So, but I do have I've got a couple of things that I'm working on right now, and I've actually invited in another chap to help me. This is the first time I've done this. So it's a chap who's slightly more experienced with DSP coding than me is coming in to sort of have a look at what I've done and go, all right, I understand what you've done, but you need to do it this way, you know. So
that's great.
So I've kind of like past sort of gone, can you sort this out for me?
Yeah. Can you share any of what those devices are for or what they could be used for?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been, I'll just do a quick screen share. So there's, I've been sharing the kind of development phase of it on my Patreon for like since Christmas.
Okay.
You know, just to sort of like, for my patrons, there's like an extra kind of part of the deal. I sort of get them to test stuff for me.
That's like, your guinea pigs. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you like try this out and tell me if it works? Can you do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So for a really long time, I've just wanted to make like my own kind of like beat repeat. You know, the Nobulator has like lots of stuff like that to do with like looping short bits of sound and doing all kinds of glitch ups and stuff. And I'm always sort of like, I'm probably going to keep making stuff like that until I'm dead, you know. But I'm always like trying to find like new interesting ways to interface with those ideas. And so the one thing that I've been putting my time into the most, there's so many versions.
I was going to say, there's a lot of net effects in there. It's like,
I don't know which ones. So 1.12 is the one that I've given off to my friend to have a look at, but we'll look at 1.9.4. So, and even this is like just the starting point for something. But basically each of these like things here is kind of an effect. So these are kind of sampler type ones. These are like filters and amplitude modulation ones.
Okay.
And then these are like kind of delays and reverbs and resonators and stuff, but they're not that great. When they happen is determined by this probability table.
Oh, interesting.
So if I want this one to happen a lot, I turn the slider up. If I want these other ones to happen not so often, then.
So it's almost kind of like a dry wet mix for each individual effect that's also step sequencing based on how much you have that meter scrolled to the right.
Yeah. So the actual the timing of it is determined by this here. So this is again, this is using probability, but it's probability for the internal clock. So if I was to say this says 2.0.0, this is 2 bars. So with that at 100%, there's a very, very high chance that the internal clock is going to trigger every 2 bars.
Okay.
And then if I introduce this one, then it's going to change to this one, which is 4N, which is like crotchets or whatever. So it's kind of like a probability kind of clock divider multiplier type thing.
Interesting.
Which also, so that determines which effect gets selected and also determines at what point it happens. So this chance thing, this is very much borrowed from Ableton's beat repeat. 100% chance means it's going to happen constantly. 0 means it won't happen at all.
Yeah.
I guess we could kind of sort of start by dialing. just going to restart the transport because sometimes the clock goes out.
That sounds wild.
You can have as much or as little as you want. So if you just want subtle little jiggles here and there, then it'll add it. Or if you just want to destroy everything.
I like both. I like the jiggles and destroying everything. You could resample that and just go and just make weirdness for like 5 minutes and go back and chop it up. I would totally use this. Yeah. It's
very much geared towards creative sampling, Mm-hmm. The one on the end, these I've called them times, but they're kind of just delays and stuff. And like they need a lot of work, but they will do some stuff. And some of them kind of like choke the sound before it enters the reverb or the delay. So you get that kind of dubby echo type thing. Mm-hmm. And then some of them are just weird resonator algorithms.
Okay.
So if you use that,
yeah, that's pretty wild. That sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah, the timing is like really. I'm quite pleased with the timing. This clock divider thing. I worked on it for a while. Timing really dead on. But also it kind of be musical and funky and not too kind of bit too wild, as it were. There's also this fade. I've added like fade, so each of these effects are all running in parallel, if you will, and so that means you can kind of fade between them. And I don't know if you'll see this, but there's actually a kind of visual cue over what's active. If I like apply some fade here, you can see how it won't work with the clock, but you might see them all kind of fade in and out. And then you get these sort of weird transitions.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah, just weird kind of electroacoustic sort of. There's one I added. I've got one somewhere that's got like, maybe it's 1.3, 1.9.3. There's one I put like a little noise generator in it. Maybe it's this one. Yeah, it's this one. So with this one, like you don't need to run any audio into it. You can just turn up the noise generator and just kind of create glitches.
I could see myself making a lot of cool risers with this. Like effect buildups and things like that would be really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of I kind of made it because I want to put drum breaks through it. But yeah, I can see it being quite useful for all kinds of things like
sure.
Like it's in the early stages. But I can see I would like it to be more than just like an effects processor. I'd like it to be like a sound generator as well that can kind of like you can just tweak some things and then it might give you like a good ride cymbal or something, just out of nowhere. And but I started on it like November Christmas, and now I'm a bit like, okay, I give up. I need some help. That's probably the most sort of interesting Max for Live thing I've been working on. So
I would call that like a really great happy accident device, like where you just turn a knob and it's just this happy little weirdness that comes out of it. And you're like, oh, I think I'll take that and I'll take some of that. Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. Like, because that's kind of what I quite like to do anyway. I early on, I worked out that I really didn't like sequencing that much, particularly with the mouse in the piano roll. Like I don't mind like editing so much, like it's slightly different. I don't really like the piano roll, really. I mean, it's powerful and I use it, but I don't use it as like a starting point. I kind of only really use it when I need to. And so when I worked out that actually you could just jam with anything really and just record it and then edit down the bits that you like, mm-hmm. and then put them together and call it a track, then I really sort of took that quite seriously, because that's just kind of, as a guitarist, that's kind of where I come from, is that of jamming with other people, and then maybe you make a recording and then you kind of go, oh, this bit here is really good, let's do something with that, and then it develops into something else, and then becomes a song. So all these kind of things along the way for me are like really useful. But also like this, I didn't really demonstrate, but like all of the things that you saw there are all mapped on the push as well. So you can actually just dial around and like play with it with like a MIDI controller. You don't have to use the mouse at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm hoping to get it out this year, maybe.
Well, hey, I'll play with it. If you need some more testing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you.
And everybody listening right now, if you didn't get to see it and you want to see what we were just looking at, go to YouTube and you can pull up all the podcasts on the YouTube with video and see Ned's awesome background and see my dirty couch in the background as well. Well, that's a really cool trick, man. I like that. Thanks for sharing that with us. Other than Max for Live devices, do you have any other projects that you're working on right now? I know that you did a live stream not too long ago. It's called More Kicks Than Friends. It was like a micro music festival.
Yeah. So I was doing those every week last year for 20 weeks during lockdown.
Yeah.
And a week ago was the 1 year the 1 year anniversary since the first one. And I felt a little kind of weep of nostalgia that I wasn't still doing them, because they were like loads of fun. And it was nice to kind of chase people on the internet to get them to give me music that I could sit in my pants and drink beer and watch and stream down YouTube and talk to people and go, well, that was very good. That was so-and-so from blah, blah, blah. And, but then eventually I got quite tired and I decided to stop. But now that the time of year has come about since I did the last one, I'm a little bit like, oh, maybe I could do it again. But I don't know. It seems a little bit weird to, I mean, I know it's not like this for everyone in the rest of the world, but I think in England right now, the plan is that we sort of start going back to normal. So I'm not sure how I feel about going on the internet and asking people to please stay in and on Saturdays and watch my live stream, because really everyone should be going out. And
I think we're going to have a lot of both. I think we're going to see a lot of live streams still happening, but I think it's going to be blended with live shows now, because I think there's a lot of people who didn't know how to live stream that had to figure it out. And I think we're still going to probably see that. Like you have websites like Stage It and a lot of these other live performance sites that popped up. And I don't think they're going to want to go anywhere anytime soon. I think people are still down for the live streaming thing. And there's still a lot of people who haven't gotten vaccinated, who are still stuck in at home. People are rethinking, like, maybe I don't want to go out as often as I used to. Some people are like that as well. But I think it's cool.
I'm one of those people. I've gotten used to it now. I mean, I'm perfectly, I don't really mind getting entertained by the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that obviously I can't wait to go to a festival or go to a gig again. But I think that you were saying a minute ago about how everyone's kind of worked out how to do a stream now. And so maybe everyone's worked out how actually it's not that difficult. And you don't really need to hire a television company to broadcast something. You can actually just do it with like a couple of secondhand GoPros and 4G,
Yeah.
And so I wonder if we'll start to see this kind of extension of people won't ever miss live gigs ever again, because it will just become easier for people to stream gigs. So if there's some band in the States that I really want to see and I can't come to the States to see their show, then they can stream it whilst everyone else is at the show. And then I can text my friend who's at the show and say, this is amazing. All this sort of stuff. And it
totally
just expands on the whole experience,
Yeah. I mean, I saw that with some bands I follow who were doing the drive-in tour thing, and they would just have these pop-up drive-in shows. And they would also have online tickets for people to stream it and watch it from their couch at home. And I think there's always people that don't want to deal with the bullshit of finding parking and having to stand in lines. And, there's people, I think it's going to go both ways. So I think it'd be cool if you decide to do another micro music fest. I understand that probably takes a lot of your time. It's probably a lot of work, but it seemed like there was a great reaction online when I was seeing all the chats and the comments from the YouTube stream.
Yeah, it did get a little bit of a cult following for a little bit, which is very nice. And I started to, I've made lots of new friends out of it as well. And I started to see some familiar people. And, you know, as kind of very low production and DIY as it was, I did enjoy doing it. And I would like to do something like that again. And I was, you know, I mean, I had enough people lined up to do maybe another 2 months. Mm-hmm. It's just that I just started to feel a bit of a burnout, and I didn't want my lack of enthusiasm to spill into my broadcasting style. So I sort of quit for a bit.
Yeah, makes sense.
But no, I would love to do it. I'd love to do it again. And I mean, it would be, I mean, I've got so many ideas, but it's really just about finding people. And I don't know. We'll see. I think about it, but I kind of, I was kind of thinking I'd start it up again around about now, but it's not really convenient for me at the moment. So,
well, I'm sure it's not like you're busy or anything, you know. You have other stuff to do.
Well, no, I mean, that's true. I mean, I think I think that maybe what I might do is, I don't know. I kind of thought maybe I could do something where it's more like I'm focusing on one particular artist. And there's a bit of like, you know, a little bit like what we're doing. We have some conversations, and then maybe there's like some techie demonstrations, or maybe it's like a performance. But there was something, but at the same time, I kind of quite liked the kind of the late night music TV vibe about it. You know, like when you might have watched like MTV2 in the mid 2000s late at night, and you'd kind of find all this sort of obscure stuff, you know.
Yeah. And
like weird psychedelic videos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I kind of thought that maybe it could be something along those lines. I don't know if you watch the Brain Feeder live streams.
I know what you're talking about, but I haven't watched many.
They're a little bit like that. It's very much, they sort of have like little short clips and little skits and very little short movies. And then there's like a performance from an artist that's the artist of the week or something. Yeah. And it does have that very kind of like alternative late night music TV thing about it, which cool. Which I quite like. Yeah, they're worth watching. Like they're always good, and there's a nice community as well. You know,
and maybe I should try something like that with the podcast. That would be interesting. At the end, just stream a short live set. Be kind of like the Tonight Show. Like they do. It's a similar kind of setup. Like as far as the interview, hangout, and then performance. Yeah.
Why not? It's like a. It's kind of like it's sort of rehashing the older form of TV, but like with the current situation, you know.
Yeah, and when I hear people, producers, and I'm guilty of this sometimes too, but just like getting stressed and be like, man, it's so much work being an artist. I have to make all the music, I have to do all the marketing, I have to do all the social media. It's like just a lot of stuff, you know, for people who want to be a full-time career as an independent artist. But it's like now is the best time, I feel like, because you've got the entire world at your hands. You think about Twitch is blowing up, how it's so easy to connect with people, more so these days than it ever has been. I mean, you can just jump on your phone and send a direct message to anybody through Instagram pretty much that you want to. You know, I mean, there's a great way to connect with fans, and live streams, I don't think it's going away anytime soon. It's just another medium to be able to connect with an audience for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like people who could be living in very, very remote parts of the world have probably maybe still got the internet, and so can still see all this stuff. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, it's, it was a little bit difficult to get a lot of real-time viewers, because I think that the idea of the live stream as a live event, maybe even though that it's just been wall to wall for all of this pandemic, it's maybe still not something that appeals to everyone's enthusiasm. I think it's people are very easy to think, I'll watch that later, I'll watch that tomorrow, or I'll watch it next week or something. You know, that are more like an on-demand kind of approach to content, is that like, oh yeah, I'll remind myself to watch that, rather than it being kind of like the collective viewing experience of like TV of like yesteryear, where people would meet the next day and go, so did you watch Game of Thrones last night, and what do you think about that, or whatever. And so like there was a nice element of that where And it was a small group of people. I think maybe there was about, at one point there was maybe 80 people watching at one point.
That's cool.
But it was a lot, but I wasn't too concerned because there was just such a nice kind of feeling of like people coming to watch this every Saturday, community driven.
Yeah, for me, like I've forced myself not to care so much about the numbers as much as I am like the actual real interactions with people. Yeah. It's like, what is it? That's like the rule of 10,000 super fans or whatever. You can make like $100,000 a year or make good money at least if you have 10,000 super fans. I've heard that before. Maybe I got that number wrong, but yeah, I mean, if you can connect,
is that a statistic?
Yeah, I've heard that before. Or maybe it's 1,000 super fans or 10,000 super fans. It's like, if you can get that many people that say like they will follow you to the ends of the earth and they love your music, you can make a pretty solid career monetizing them. That's a thing I've heard from several like music marketing gurus. I think Circa from Entrepreneur was one of the people that mentioned that on the podcast a while ago. He does a lot of independent music marketing, and with independent labels, he works with a lot of them.
But very interesting. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Yeah. I mean, like, if you could get 2,000 people to give you £20 a year, you've got whatever the maths is there.
Yeah. I mean, you can make good money. Yeah. So, I mean, that's true. But yeah, man, thank you for joining the podcast. I want to respect your time. It's been a good hang, and maybe tell people the best place to connect with you if they want to get in touch moving forward.
I guess probably the best starting point is YouTube, because that's where probably most of my stuff is. And then you could probably find your way around from there. I'll send you my Linktree if that will be of any use. Yeah. Do check out Music Hackspace for things that we're doing in the future. But do you want to describe
Music Hackspace for people who maybe don't know much about it?
It's kind of it's community driven learning. So it's a lot of workshops and a lot of meetups to do with more unusual creative aspects of music and sound. And so like a lot of stuff to do with Max MSP and a lot of stuff to do with Ableton and or designing your own hardware and just like real kind of creative tech stuff, but very community orientated as well. So we're doing a meetup. I'm hosting a meetup this Saturday, and we've got Dylan Bastan. Is that how you pronounce it?
Dylan Bastion,
who did the Inspired by Nature. Yeah, he did the Inspired by Nature stuff that came out in Live 11. Yeah, so he's coming to sort of do a demonstration. I don't know what about, but I'm sure it'll be interesting. That's free to attend. And I think, we're going to be doing more of those in the future and stuff. So
he's an interesting guy. He did a thing with the Certified Trainer group and on the whole tree, bouncy balls, all the different devices he made, Inspired by Nature. He's a funny guy. He's on a whole nother level. He's brilliant.
Okay. Well, we've been sort of, we've been connected online for a while, but I've not like met him in not in real life and not virtually either. But I'm looking forward to meeting him virtually on Saturday.
Yeah, he's funny. He's funny. Cool. Right on. Well, we're going to include links in the show notes like we always do, everybody listening. So definitely check out NedRush, aka Duncan Wilson. Thanks, man, for hanging out. It's been a lot of fun, and I'll have this posted most likely on Tuesday, and I'll definitely share it with you then and have the video edited. And thanks for making really cool Max for Live devices like the newest album. Hopefully see a More Kicks Than Friends Fest come up again, maybe in the future. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Well, I hope so too. So I mean, if it happens, then at every corner of the internet where I leave stuff, you'll probably hear about it. So okay. Cool. Well, you got a new Instagram follower. I've been following on Instagram. Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, for sure, man. Give you a follow back. Yeah, I'm Philia Music. That's my artist name. So if you see me floating around on the web, that's me. Okay, got it. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for joining the podcast, man. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll be in touch for sure. Okay, nice one. Cheers. Yeah, cheers. See ya. See you next time. Yo, thanks everybody for checking out the podcast. Quick reminder, if you want to grab my free Ableton Live 11 shortcuts, go to liveproducersonline.com/live11shortcuts and download it for free. Also, you will be subscribed to the newsletter, so you'll receive emails and be the first to know when new podcast episodes come out and other cool stuff. Also, if you want to purchase Ableton Live 11, I'd be glad to hook you up with a discount. Just go to liveproducersonline.com/buyableton, and I will see you guys next time.